Now let's start with the paper, the first paper we are going to talk about today, reading and use of English. A very brief overview, 1 hour and 30 minutes to do 8 parts with different testing objectives, reading, use of English, different also different task types, okay, looking at different aspects of reading, different aspects of use of English to make sure that we are capturing as wide a variety as possible of skills and sub-skills that are necessary at C1. Let's start with the first part, reading and use of English, part 1. I'm not going to go through all the parts because we only have 1 hour and 15 minutes to go through these 2 papers. I'm just going to focus on the parts that I think may be more challenging or maybe more interesting for you. So this is what part 1 looks like. There is a text with a number of gaps, and there are 4 options for each gap. Right, so what do you need to demonstrate in part 1? What is the objective of this part? What are we testing here? Well, you can see that we are testing a number of things: fixed phrases, collocations, idioms, phrasal verbs, prepositions, semantic precision as well. So really, the focus is on vocabulary and also on the understanding of the text. Okay, so it's not only looking at phrase or sentence level, but you also may need to have a deeper understanding of the text in order to be able to fill in the gaps. So let's look at an example here, okay, of what we mean. In the case of the first gap, we may be looking at semantic precision. That's what I think. And then, for example, number 4, we can see an example maybe of a collocation. So how should we approach these parts of the exam? The most important thing is that first, something that maybe you don't think about when you start, you going and you start focusing on the gaps straight away. But it's important that you read the whole text and quickly, so you can get an idea what the text is about. Okay, so don't focus on the gaps yet. Just read the text to get a general idea of what it is about. Then, once you've done that, focus on each gap and read the whole sentence and maybe the paragraph. Okay, look at what comes before, what comes afterwards, and then you may decide, okay, I need to look at the sentence and I need to look at the paragraph in order to be able to answer that, to fill in that gap. Try to identify clues. Do you think you need a preposition? Maybe they are testing a strong collocation. Just start thinking about what we may be after. Then choose the option A to D. I think David would agree that maybe it is a good idea maybe not to look at the options and just try to come up with the option you think is correct without looking at the options, because at this level they may be a bit too tempting. And then when you have an idea, you can go on and look at the options. Once you have filling all the different gaps, it's important that you read the whole text again to make sure that what you've written makes sense and the text flows. Okay, so going back to the sample task, what do you think is the correct option for 1, and maybe what is the correct option for 4? I'm going to give you 1 minute for that. Okay, number 1, commodity from Karen. Julia, 1D as well. Danielle, Melanie. Okay. Some people say C as well. C, D. Okay, how about for 4? Okay. Regarded. A for regarded. Okay. Yes. Okay, so number 1 is commodity. Indeed. And the number 4 is regarded. Well done. Very good. Commodity here, I think, is the one that makes more sense if we look at the definition, a substance or a product that can be traded, bought, or sold. The other 3 don't really make sense. They don't really, the semantic precision, the nuances are not correct in this context. And then regarded, highly regarded are words that are that usually appear together. Okay. Well done. You were quick and you were right. So you seem to be ready. Okay. Thank you for this. And let's look at part 2, the open close. Okay. Here that we are talking about a text with gaps, but we don't have any options to choose from. What is the testing focus here? We want to check your awareness and control of grammar, and there is also some focus on vocabulary. So we are going to be looking at pronouns, phrasal verbs, linkers, prepositions, articles, set phrases, modal verbs, okay? So grammar words in a sense, okay, in this part of the exam. In this part 2, for some gaps, you will only need to look at the immediate phrase or sentence. For example, in this case here that I'm showing you from Test and Train, our learning platform, teaching and learning platform. For instance, here you've got a light bulb trying to give you a hint, a clue that some questions test your knowledge of fixed phrases. So here we've got after all. And then also giving you feedback when it comes to work or study. The correct answer is it. We use the phrase when it comes to mean when we consider. Okay, so here we've got examples of situations in which you need to look at the sentence and not really much more, right? Because we are looking at something which is very close to the gap to look for hints and clues. But in some other cases, we may need to read a longer chunk of text, maybe a whole paragraph or the whole text. The approach would be the same, really, okay? I would really encourage you to read the whole text to get a general idea of what it is about before you go on and look at the gaps. So in this case here, I'm going to give you some seconds to read the sentence. And maybe you can tell me the word we need. Okay, well done, Alexander. Sandra, Teresa, Domingo, Hazel, well done. Okay, yes, however is the correct option here because we are expressing contrast. Fantastic. Okay, moving on now to talk about other parts of the reading and use of English paper, and we're going to continue with some questions coming from you. You seemed quite interested in how to manage your time effectively, how to save time. as well, and how to address this part correctly, because at times multiple answers seem correct. So I'm going to answer your questions with another question. I would like you to tell me what you think good readers do. So if I asked you this question, what would you say? What do you think good readers do? Okay, Raul says skim the text. Hajar, underline keywords, underline important words. Skimming and scanning from Carmen. They understand the general idea. Keywords, understand quickly, getting the gist. Okay. Right, so you kind of agree that there needs to be a combination of soft skills, okay? So reading quickly, but also understanding details. It's important also to get some help underlining keywords, especially for those of you who are very visual. Maybe the underlining helps you a lot. Inference from Julian. Okay. Yes, so indeed, I think one of the key aspects of good readers, or one of the key skills that good readers have, is that they can decide on the best approach depending on the task. Okay, so for sure, there will be situations in which we will need to engage in careful reading, okay, which is linear and slow. It's where we are going to understand absolutely everything, the main ideas, the supporting detail. And there are situations in which we need that, okay, when we really need to understand the text. But then there are other situations in which we need to engage in fast reading techniques, such as skimming, okay, reading quickly to get a general idea of what the text is about, scanning, reading quickly to get specific information, a percentage we are interested in, a name, for example, and then search reading, which is a bit more challenging than scanning because it involves locating info on specific topics, okay? So it's a quick search for information and looking for meaning rather than a specific word. So there will be situations in which we will need to combine fast reading and careful reading. And good readers definitely know how to combine both and when to choose which one. Okay, other aspects that we can find in good readers. They also understand referencing, okay? So they understand the use of pronouns, they understand the use of cohesive devices, devices, yes, connectors, for example. So they can understand the structure of the text. They also know how to deal with vocabulary. For sure, we will always find words that we don't understand. I think this also happens in our mother tongue, depending on the topic we are reading about. But it's important that we know how to cope with these unknown words. We need to decide if they are vital for the main message, or to understand the main message, and if so, we need to try and work out their meaning. Okay, trying to think about the context, the word class, if it has a negative prefix. So trying to use all our resources to try to get an idea of what the word means, and then also being ready to ignore words that are not as important as we think for the main message. Okay, so if we think, okay, that's maybe something that I don't need to know to understand the main message, forget about it. Keep on reading, and don't get stressed just because there was a word you didn't understand. Then I also think that good readers can definitely recognize paraphrasing and identify synonyms. Okay, so they can identify different ways in which something is being expressed. So all these aspects characterize good readers, and it's these are different abilities that it's good that we try and develop when we are preparing for our exam, because really they are skills for life. They are skills that we will need when we go to university, when we are working, when we are carrying out our daily life activities. Right, let's look at part 5, which looks like this. Is the text with the different questions and 4 options. And we're going to look at an example taken from Test and Train again. And we're going to see why this one, option B, is the correct option here. So I'm going to give you some time to read the text and the options. Okay, and then I will comment on the different options and the aspect of the text that is guiding us towards the correct answer. Right, so their diversity has been ignored by scientists. It hasn't been ignored, simply it wasn't known, right? So ignore means not to pay attention to something or to pretend that you haven't seen somebody. But this is not the case, right? It was simply that it wasn't known. So this option here is not right, because the technology wasn't available. So the scientists couldn't know that this was there. Then they have been regarded as an outdated area of study. Well, there are different reasons mentioned here, but none of them refer to the idea that fungi has been viewed as outdated in the West. It is true that it had been studied for thousands of years in Asia, but this idea of outdated is not mentioned in the text. They have been considered too inaccessible to examine. Isn't the correct option either. Okay, as we can see here, because it was simply that the technology wasn't there. So the correct option is B, their significance has been insufficiently appreciated, because as you can see, it wasn't seen as their own kingdom of life until the 60s, and they were put in a corner of the plant science department. This is giving us the idea that their significance, their importance wasn't appreciated. So this is an example of the type of parts of the text, the type of reasoning that you have to carry out in order to be able to reach the correct option here. Right, so moving on now to part 8. What do you need to demonstrate in part 8, which is the multiple matching? Well, we are looking at detail, we're looking at opinion, specific information, and attitude. So these are the main testing objectives of this part 8. So what should we bear in mind for this part of the exam? The questions are on the left. So maybe you can look at them before reading the text, and it's a good idea, as you said in the chat box, to underline keywords or concepts. Then it's time for you to read the texts quickly to try to get an idea of what the texts are about, and maybe scan for the ideas mentioned by the keywords, the meaning behind these keywords. You need to bear in mind also that a question may consist of 2 parts. For example, someone being surprised at being confronted by a difficult situation. So 2 different ideas there. Of course, don't choose an option just because there is a word in the question that matches a word in the text. Remember that it's very important to recognize paraphrasing, the use of synonyms. So be ready for that in this part of the exam. Skimming is reading quickly to get a general idea of what the text is about, and scanning is reading quickly as well, but to try to identify specific information. And then once you have located the paragraph or the specific part of the text where you think matches the question, then is where you have to engage in careful reading to ensure that it is exactly the correct option, that there is an accurate match in terms of meaning. So this is part 8, the questions, the text. It can be a longer text, it can be shorter texts. And let's look at the approach I just mentioned. So one of the questions was about keeping your final objective in mind when you are planning to change jobs. Okay, these are the keywords that we identified. And we have seen that maybe consultant D was referring to these. So we read the text and we find that move around, move on are ways of referring to changing jobs. Goal is very close in meaning to final objective. Think about, keep in mind, playing, strategy. Okay, so as you can see, the meaning is there. The words are not the same, so definitely we are looking at expressing the same idea in a different way. Right, so this is what you need to do. Identify keywords in the different options, and then look at the texts quickly to get to identify the one that is closest to the statement, and then read in detail to really make sure that the ideas there are mentioned in the paragraph. One more question coming from you in terms of time. Do we have extra time to fill in the answer sheets? Well, don't worry about these. It will be in the instructions that you see the day of the exam. Here, for instance, you must complete the answer sheets within the time limit. Okay, so for the reading and use of English paper, no extra time. You must complete the answer sheets within the time limit. And you may want to transfer your answers as you are completing the different parts, so you don't have to do it at the end, maybe a bit rushed, so you avoid making mistakes. There was also a question about reading resources, and here I recommend Read and Improve. It is an online platform. It is free. Okay, you can access it through this QR code. You can select a CFR level and you will get a number of texts at that level of ability. So if you're looking for reading practice, please check it out. Also, because it's not only a reading platform, it's also a learning platform. Once you have selected a text, you can hover over it and get information about vocabulary you are not familiar with or you want to learn more about. For instance, emissions here, it tells you the word class, collocations, definitions with examples, and then you can also write a summary of the text and get instant feedback. So really, I feel it's quite useful, and it would be good to find your opinion if you've used it. So let us know.